The Battle of the Eclipse, 585 BCE. The sun began to vanish while men were still killing each other. Steel clashed against bronze under a clear Anatolian sky, the air thick with dust, sweat, and the metallic stench of blood. Shields locked, spears thrust forward in practiced rhythm. Orders were shouted, unheard beneath the roar of battle. This was not chaos, it was routine. For 6 brutal years, the armies of Lydia and Media had met like this, grinding each other down in an unending cycle of vengeance. Villages burned, fields were trampled, rivers turned red, and still the war dragged on. On this day, neither side expected mercy. Then the light began to fail. At first, it was barely perceptible, a dimming at the edges of vision, as if clouds were gathering where none existed. Shadows sharpened unnaturally, stretching long and thin across the ground. Colors dulled. The warmth of the sun weakened, replaced by a creeping cold that slid across exposed skin. A Lydian soldier paused mid-swing, confused, blinking upward. His opponent did the same. Above them, the sun was being consumed. A dark curve crept across its surface, steady and silent, erasing the familiar circle that governed time, harvests, and life itself. Panic rippled through the ranks faster than any command. Cries rose, not war shouts, but prayers. Men shouted the names of gods, begged for forgiveness, promised sacrifices they would never have time to give. Horses screamed and bucked, refusing to move. Standards toppled as bearers dropped to their knees. Veterans hardened by years of slaughter felt their courage unravel, replaced by something far worse than fear of death, fear of judgment. Within minutes, daylight collapsed into twilight, then into night. The sun vanished completely, replaced by a black disk surrounded by a burning ring of fire. Stars pierced the sky, birds fell silent, the wind died. The battlefield, moments earlier alive with violence, froze in collective terror. To the men standing beneath it, there was no mystery. The gods had turned their faces away. The war between Lydia and Media was not a minor border dispute. It was a struggle between 2 ascending powers in the ancient Near East, each seeking dominance over land, trade, and legacy. Lydia, under King Alyattes, was rich beyond measure, its wealth drawn from gold-bearing rivers and thriving trade routes. Media, ruled by King Cyaxares, was a hardened military state whose warriors had helped destroy the once mighty Assyrian Empire. Both kings believed their rule was sanctioned by divine will. For 6 years, that belief had justified slaughter. The conflict began, as many ancient wars did, with blood vengeance, raids answered by reprisals, insults repaid with fire. Each campaign deepened the hatred. Each battle hardened the resolve of both sides. Neither king could retreat without appearing weak before gods and subjects alike. Peace was impossible. Victory was mandatory. Until the heavens intervened. As darkness smothered the battlefield, priests screamed warnings. In the ancient world, eclipses were not neutral events. They were omens, violent ruptures in cosmic order. In Mesopotamian tradition, an eclipse often signaled the imminent death of a king. Rituals existed to protect rulers from their effects, including placing substitute kings on thrones to absorb divine wrath. To see the sun die during battle was unthinkable. This was no coincidence. Weapons slipped from trembling hands. Some soldiers wept openly. Others lay flat on the ground, pressing their faces into the earth, begging forgiveness for sins they could not name. Men who showed no mercy moments earlier now feared that the gods had come to destroy them all. The fighting stopped, not gradually, but instantly. There was no retreat signal, no negotiated pause. Combat simply ceased. Lydians and Medes stared across the field at one another, no longer enemies, but witnesses to the same terror. Killing under a darkened sun felt like defying the universe itself. When the light finally returned, it did so slowly, almost cautiously, as if the world were testing whether it was allowed to exist again. The sun re-emerged, whole and blinding. Warmth crept back into the air, birds resumed their calls, the sky returned to blue, but nothing else resumed. Both armies withdrew in silence. Envoys were sent before nightfall. Negotiations began almost immediately. The war, 6 years of bloodshed, ended not with conquest, but with fear. King Alyattes of Lydia and King Cyaxares of Media agreed to peace on the spot. The Hellas River was declared the border between their realms, a natural boundary sanctified by divine warning. To seal the treaty, a marriage alliance was arranged. Alyattes' daughter would wed Cyaxares' son, binding the two dynasties together. A war that strategy could not end was stopped by the sky. Centuries later, the Greek historian Herodotus would record the event, adding a remarkable detail: the eclipse had been predicted. According to him, Thales of Miletus, a philosopher rather than a priest, had foretold that the sun would darken on that very day. Whether this claim is true remains uncertain. Predicting solar eclipses with precision in the 6th century BCE would have been extraordinarily difficult, requiring long-term astronomical records and mathematical insight rare for the time. Yet belief mattered more than accuracy. The idea that a human mind could foresee the death of the sun only reinforced the sense that the universe followed hidden laws, and that violating those laws carried consequences. To ancient listeners, it blurred the line between divine will and natural order. Either way, the message was the same: the war had gone too far. Modern astronomy confirms the event with chilling precision. On May 28, 585 BCE, a total solar eclipse did indeed pass directly over Anatolia. The timing aligns perfectly with historical accounts. The darkness that fell on the battlefield was real, sudden, and absolute. But understanding the mechanics diminishes the terror it inspired. For ancient soldiers, the sun was not a ball of burning gas. It was a living presence, an eye of the gods, a guarantor of order. Its disappearance meant that order had collapsed. Kings ruled by divine favor, and when the gods appeared angry, royal authority crumbled instantly. The Battle of the Eclipse reveals something fundamental about ancient warfare. Belief could overpower ambition. Fear of divine punishment could halt armies more effectively than walls, weapons, or exhaustion. In that moment of darkness, no general could command obedience, no king could demand sacrifice. All were equally small beneath the sky.
The event also marks a quiet turning point in human thought. It stands at the threshold between myth and science. If Thales truly anticipated the eclipse, then this moment represents one of the earliest recognitions that nature followed predictable rules, that the cosmos, terrifying as it was, might be understood rather than feared. Yet on the battlefield, knowledge did not matter. What mattered was perception. Men believed the gods had intervened, and belief reshaped history. The plains where the armies stood eventually returned to silence. Grass grew where blood had soaked the earth. The Halys River flowed on, indifferent to borders and treaties, reflecting the same sun that had once vanished above it. The soldiers aged, died, and were forgotten. But the memory endured. Generations retold the story of the day the sky went dark and stopped a war. Poets spoke of humbled kings. Priests warned of divine judgment. Scholars marveled at the alignment of history and heaven. It became a reminder that human violence, no matter how relentless, could be ended in an instant by forces beyond control. The Battle of the Eclipse was never truly a battle. It was a moment when humanity looked upward, felt the weight of the universe pressing down upon it, and chose peace, not out of wisdom, but out of awe and fear of the gods watching from behind a darkened sun.